Welcome to the next snapshot webinar in our series about the StableNet web portal. My name is Titus Dose and I work for the development department at Infosim. Today's topic is the group analyzer in the StableNet portal. As you know, we've been having the group analyzer for quite a while in the Java GUI, but with StableNet 11, it is also available in the web portal. All right, let's dive into it. Some general sentences at the beginning. What can you do with the group analyzer? In contrast to the analyzer, where you always consider one measurement at a time, with the group analyzer, you study multiple measurements or monitors at a time. Indeed, you can do even more. For example, you can get a quick and good overview of the components in your system, your inventory. But today I'm focusing on measurements and monitors. And the group analyzer gives you plenty of options for customized aggregations that you can make. And it allows you to create tables and charts that can be used as building blocks for reports. Let's start with an example. I've opened the group analyzer, and you have these two panels at the right side. And we start with the analyzer settings panel. First of all, you have the report settings. At the top, you have the statistic type. And as you can see, you have quite a lot of options here. These can be divided into two groups, global and specific measurement types. You have global options that everybody has, assuming the respective modules are licensed, and you have specific measurements. Here you see things depending on the measurements that you have in your system. Just to give you some examples regarding the global types, you can study ping measurements, interface measurements, but you can also investigate your inventory. You can work with the various tagables, tables, or use the audit report to analyze changes that are happening to the various elements in the system. And here in my development system, for example, I also have some specific measurement types like Cisco CPU, Linux host, or processor measurements. But let's restrict ourselves for now to the interfaces and do some capacity analysis. You have multiple tables here. Of course, I have prepared some example, and I'll be using the interface min-max average bandwidth table. Let's first open it to have a look what it offers. You see the interfaces here, then you have bandwidth and reachability information. And what you also have is the average, maximum, and minimum in and outgoing traffic aggregated over the time that we specified, which is currently 1 day by the default settings. We'll come to that in a minute. You see that there's not a lot of traffic going on here. I'm of course not on a productive system, as I already said, but on my development system where I have the latest improvements. But generally, I'll only be presenting features to you that you have from StableNet 11 on. Then you have the top N field here. That is another aggregation. I don't see all entries in the table, but only the top 10. A little hint, so you can change that, of course, a little hint. If you type in 0, then you see all. We're currently adding more functionality to that, namely that you can always specify the column relative to which you want to have the top N elements. Then you can, for example, also say, I want to have the 10 interfaces with the most or least average ingoing or outgoing traffic, so that you can specify that. That is not a big change, but we don't need that for now, as I'm going to work with all interfaces that are not too many. The monitor severity field is irrelevant for us now, as we don't work with monitors, but with measurements here. Now, the time settings, you can specify the time interval for which you want to make the aggregations, either by specifying the length of the interval or by specifying start and end date, which I will do now. So let's say, for example, we take the last calendar week from 0 o'clock to Sunday, say, yeah, last minute, last second of the day. And now we can set tag filters For our use case, we only need the element filter, and often these filters suffice. The elements we are considering here are, of course, interfaces, so it only makes sense to use tags of this domain. Let's say for now, we are only interested in Ethernet interfaces. Then we are adding some custom tag filter, a contains filter. We use as tag category the interface type, and we want it to be of type Ethernet. So I'm not sure whether it's capitalized or not. All right. That are the tag filters. And now we also have, I'm closing them, we also have table filters. These do not refer to any tags, but instead to columns of the table. And for our example, we make use of a naming convention that we have for the devices here in this lab, and consequently for the interfaces. Let's keep it simple and say we only want to consider those interfaces that belong to a core router or that are connected to a core router. I add a contains filter here for the column interface. And I say I only want to have those rows where the string CR appears for core router. As I said, this works due to naming conventions. Of course, in that specific case, I could have done the same with the tag filter, but that would have been a little more complex because I would have needed two different tag categories for that. The interface column does not simply contain the tag that we have for the interface name. That's the reason. And of course, you can also do things with table filters you can't do with tag filters. Most information in the tables won't be available as tags. So let's see now how it looks. We see the Ethernet interfaces of core routers or interfaces connected to core routers, only 21 now, and the aggregated values for the calendar week we selected. The next part, columns and aggregations, is very useful, and this is something we only have in the web portal. We can add more aggregations here, and the best way to explain that is with an example. Currently, we see the interfaces in the table, one in a row, and you also see that different user groups here, standing in this case for the admins of various countries, are responsible for the various interfaces. For our reporting, we now don't want to list every interface on its own. On a productive system, we might have thousands of interfaces, but we only want to know what is the highest, lowest, average, median utilization of the interfaces of a certain country. Usually, you would use the utilization table instead of the bandwidth table for this, but as the utilizations are pretty low here, and all interfaces have the same bandwidth, it is more convenient to work with the absolute values instead of the relatives. So in order to achieve what I just described, we group by the group or customer and load the data again. Now we have a new table, and for each country or user group, we have a separate row. And now we can also add the aggregated data into new columns. For example, we first count the number of interfaces each user group has. So we select the column group or customer, and aggregation type is count. And we give that a name, simply call it count. And now we have it. And now we can add aggregated traffic data as well. Every interface has a maximum in value, the maximum ingoing traffic in the time interval we've specified, and each user group has multiple interfaces. So it might be interesting to ask, what is the median of the max ingoing traffic values of the interfaces of a certain user group? So we select the column max in, and as aggregation, we select the median, and we call it median max in. I can apply, and you see the data that we wanted. All right, now we can add some more columns in the same way. I've prepared that for you in another tab. And now you see here the median, maximum, and also the average of the max utilizations of the interfaces of the various groups or countries. So although this is a rather simple and a bit artificial example, I hope you see the chances that the group analyzer offers. With only a few clicks, you extract some information that you would not be able to recognize in the raw data. And the group analyzer offers you quite a lot of options to extract the information that you need. And you can add these tables into a report and automatically send such information out week-wise via email. Now, let's jump to the second panel, the data visualization panel. There are multiple options to improve the visualization. Up to now, we have only been working with tables. That is the first icon here, which is selected by default. Let's stay with the tables for one more minute. We can add now title and time ranges. There is already a default. We are changing that now a little. So let's say we call it group-wise traffic table. And as you see, the changes I make here are can be directly seen here in the title, and as a subtitle, we are only considering the European user groups. And yeah, we will stay with the time range information that we have here by default. So as you see, we always try to reduce the number of needed clicks that you have to make. Also, for tables and for charts, you can add SLA markers. Let's do that now. I'll quickly guide you through the UI. The idea is to color certain rows or cells in case the values in or decrease some threshold. So we select a column we want to refer to. For example, we say the median max in column, this one, and now we can say we want to have all rows colored that where the median max in value increases, for example, 12. Then I have to add some high value here. Must be a number, of course. All right. And you see the corresponding cells are colored in red now. Now you have several options. You can change the opacity of the color. You can only color the string and not the complete cell, or color the complete row and not only the cell. All right, then I'll remove that again. If suitable, we can also generate now donut and bar charts. We can do that, for example, to represent the number of interfaces of the separate user groups. For example, here we say, we select the count, and then we see here the various user groups and the number of interfaces we have here. All right, next I want to present one more chart type, but as we don't have time series data here, this chart type doesn't make sense here. So I switched to another tab that I prepared. I won't go through the analyzer settings panel again, just very briefly, you see monitors here that have had a state with a severity at least major in the last day. And what you see in the table are monitor events. Whenever the state of a monitor changes, a new row is created. You see here in the top row, for example, that this monitor was in okay state for some hours and then changed to major. Well, now we have some time-based data and can use our event timeline chart. Okay, it makes sense to group by the monitor name, since, as you saw, we had multiple entries for the separate monitors. Then we show the start date of each event at the x-axis and the state of the monitor at the y-axis here. And what we get now is a very clear overview of the availability of our devices in the last day. We see that in the morning, all devices were unavailable for some time. So that probably has some common cause. Recognizing this will help us with the troubleshooting. So the group analyzer really helps us here. But two devices also had another short period of unavailability later on. That is probably for another reason. Now we can improve in the same way the visualization again, which I don't do now. And if you don't want to use this for a report, but still make a current view persistent, you can take a screenshot and store that in your file system. Okay, there's one more chart type that you can use in the group analyzer. This simple line chart. This chart also offers really nice features many people don't know, and it was written by a colleague from scratch. Hence, this is something we are proud of, but you will see and use that chart type way more often in other parts of StableNet. For example, you can use it in the customizable device dashboards, which are coming with StableNet 12 and which I will present in a couple of months. So I'll also say some words about that chart type then. And I think this is a good cliffhanger. Let me finally wrap things up a little. My focus was the implementation of the group analyzer in the web portal. We have seen that we have added features that did not and do not exist in the Java GUI, especially the grouping by feature is, in my opinion, very useful. Personally, I really like also the usability that we have in the group analyzer. This is no self-praise because I was not involved in the development of the features I showed. I also hope I could a little bit transfer the impression that the group analyzer is indeed a very mighty tool and you can use it for very different use cases. And as I said in the beginning, if you want to know more about the group analyzer in general and lots of use cases, please let us know. Thank you for your interest.